today's topic, we are going to discuss the case study 2, which talk about what happened in Cavite Mutiny. For some insight, there are two events happened during that time: the historic year of Cavite Mutiny and the martyrdom of three priests, Marian Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, or the Gamburza. But as we continue, we will be only focusing on how these two events collaborated to each other, including the Spanish accounts and Filipino accounts. What are we waiting for? Sit back and relax as we travel and go back to the history. The Spanish account of Cavite Mutiny. The documentation of a Spanish historian, Jose Montero y Vidal, centered on how the event was an attempt in overthrowing the Spanish government in the Philippines. Although regarded as a historian, his account of the mutiny was criticized by a woefully biased and rabid for a scholar. Another account from the official report, written by Governor General Rafael Izquierdo, implicated the native clergy who were then active in the movement towards secularization of parishes. These two accounts collaborated each other. To understand deeper the given information, I'll give you a wider explanation on this. Going back in 1872, Jose Montero y Vidal and Governor General Rafael Izquierdo is the historian behind the documentation of Cavite Mutiny. These two have different agenda and explanation, but they intend to connect the events during the time, specifically in year 1872. They both have their own perspective. One is focusing about the government and one is about the church. In short, it's between politics and religion. Before I proceed to two sides of these historians and their accounts documentation, let me introduce them first. The first one is Jose Montero y Vidal. He was born in Manila on April 13, 1857, of parents belonging to the Spanish nobility. A Filipino scholar, scientist, and historical researcher, he was known for his writing about the different aspects of Philippine culture. He served as a member of the Philippine Commission and founded a federal party. He was then the historian behind the Spanish version of Cavite Mutiny. The next one is Rafael Geronimo Cayetano Izquierdo y Gutierrez. He was born in Standard, Spain on September 30, 1820. He was the Governor General that replaced the Liberate Carlos Maria de la Torre. Izquierdo was famous for his use of iron fist, type of government contradicted to the liberal government of his predecessors. He was the Governor General during that 1872 Cavite Mutiny, which led to the execution of 41 mutineers, including the Gamburza martyrs. These two is the important persona behind the Cavite Mutiny because they are the one behind the truth. Let's talk about first the account. Let's talk about the first account, Montero account. Jose Montero y Vidal, Spanish version of the Cavite Mutiny of 1872. The Spanish Revolution, which overthrew a circular throne, the propaganda carried on by and Vidal pressed against monarchical principles, a tendency of the most sacred respect towards the throne majesty, the democratic and republican books of pamphlets, the speeches, and preaching of the disposedness of these new ideas in Spain. The outburst of the American publics and the criminal policy of the senseless governor, whom revolutionary government sent to govern the Philippines, and who put into practice these ideas were in determining circumstances which gave rise among certain Filipinos to the idea of attaining their independence. Because of uncertain things been happening around during that time in the Cavite, it was awakens the spirit of the Filipinos to gain their independence. from the idea of a Spanish Revolution which overthrew the throne to senseless empowerment at various times, but especially in the beginning of 1872, the authors received anonymous communication with the information that Great apparently would break out against the Spaniards. The minute the fleet of Cavite left the south, and that all would be assassinated. Next is all about the account of Governor Izquierdo. Rafael Izquierdo official report on the Cavite Mutiny. Up to now, it has been clear to determine if they plan to establish a monarchy or a republic, because the Indians have no words in their language to describe this different form of government, whose head in Filipino would be called Hari, but it turns out that they would replace the head of the government. A priest that the head selected would be Jose Burgos or Jacinto Zamora. Such is the plan of rebels, those would guide them, and means they counted upon for its realization. It is apparent that the accounts underscore the reason for the revolution. The abolition privilege enjoyed by the workers of Cavite as an such an exemption from the payment of tribute and being unemployed in polos y servicios or a forced labor. Attempt overthrow to the Spanish government of the Philippines to install a new Hari in the person of Father Burgos Zamora. According to him, native clergy attracted supporters by giving a charismatic assurance that their fight would not fail because they had God's support, aside from the promises of lofty rewards such as employment, wealth, and rank in the army. In Governor Izquierdo's account, he reveals how did the priest manage to manipulate the Indians or the Filipinos in the documentation he executed these priests for not giving the independency we deserve, and they would like to rule in the name of church with the help of God, they say. So, sa ating pagbabalik tanaw sa nakaraan sa taong 1872 kung saan naganap ang Cavite Mutiny, isinaad ni Jose Montero y Vidal kung papaano tayo napamunuan sa hindi magandang paraan, kung kaya't nagkaroon tayo ng revolusyon na nag-atim ng ating kalayaan mula sa Espanya. Sa pagpapaliwanag naman ni General Izquierdo, ang mga pari na sina Burgos, Jacinto at Gomez ay pinalak manipulahin ang mga Indio at nais nila tayong mapamanuan sa pamamagitan ng mga kasinunganilang kanilang napagana. Now, as I've opened this topic, the next reporter will be giving you additional information and more deeper explanation on Cavite Mutiny. And I hope you learned from my report. Have a blessed day, everyone. May this information landed to your mind. Goodbye and thank you for watching.
Good day to each and everyone. I am Rieko LDS, BSP, first year, section A. At this moment, can you lend me your ear to gain some knowledge about my report, which is differing accounts of the events of 1872. So, there are two versions of first-hand accounts about the 1872 Cavite Mutiny. The accounts from the Spaniards and the accounts from the Filipinos. And now, we are going to examine of which accounts tells the truth. Spanish account. Jose Montero y Vidal, a prolific Spanish historian, documented the event and highlighted it as an attempt of the Indios to overthrow the Spanish government in the Philippines. Both Montero and Izquierdo scored out that the abolition of privileges enjoyed by the workers of Cavite arsenal such as non-payment of tributes and exemption from forced labor were the main reasons of the revolution. However, other causes were enumerated by them, including the Spanish Revolution, which overthrew the secular throne. Dirty propagandas proliferated by unrestrained press, democratic and liberal and republican books and pamphlets, reaching the Philippines. And most importantly, the presence of the native clergy who, out of animosity against the Spanish friars, conspired and supported the rebels and enemies of Spain. As a writer, Montero contributed to the Real Academia de la Historia and wrote 3 volumes of his book, Historia General Filipinas desde el descubrimiento de dichas islas hasta nuestros días, which included his first-hand account on the Cavite Mutiny, published on Volume 3, by which were successively published from 1887, 1894, and 1895. Historia General de Filipinas desde el descubrimiento de dichas y nuestro print source from Madrid and Telo, 95.11, 653 km away from Cavite. Rafael Izquierdo was the Governor-General of the Philippines from 1871 to 1873. He was famous for his use of iron first type of government, contradicting the liberal government of his predecessor. He imposed a reform which suggested that the soldiers of the engineering and artillery corps should pay taxes, from which they were previously exempt, and they were also required to perform manual labor. In Rafael Izquierdo's account, the mutiny was hatched by a group of native Filipino priests, several mestizos, and lawyers who were fighting against the crimes and abuses experienced by Filipinos under the Spanish regime, and according to his official report to the King of Spain, he magnified the event and made use of it to implicate the native clergy, which was then active in the call for secularization of parishes. And he also reported that the 3 Filipino priests named Mariano, Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora is planning to liquidate the Spanish rulers and take over their positions. In the Filipino accounts, first, the account of Trinidad Pardo de Tavera, a Filipino physician, historian, and politician of Spanish and Portuguese descent. Trinidad, also known by his name Trinidad Hermenegildo Pardo de Tavera, was known for his writings about different aspects of the Philippine culture. Dr. Trinidad Hermenegildo Pardo de Tavera, a Filipino scholar and researcher, wrote the Filipino version of the bloody incident in Cavite. In his point of view, the incident was a mere mutiny by the native Filipino soldier and laborers of the Cavite arsenal who turned out to be dissatisfied with the abolition of their privileges indirectly. Tavera blamed Governor Izquierdo's cold-blooded policies such as the abolition of privileges of the workers and native army members of the arsenal and the prohibition of the founding of the School of Arts and Trades for the Filipinos. Tavera believed that the Spanish friars and Izquierdo used the Cavite Mutiny as the powerful lever by magnifying it as a full-blown conspiracy involving not only the native army but also included residents of the Cavite and Manila. And more importantly, Tavera believed that the Spanish friars and Izquierdo used the Cavite Mutiny as a powerful lever by magnifying it as a full-blown conspiracy involving not only the native army but also included residents of Cavite and Manila. and more importantly, the native clergy to overthrow the Spanish government in the Philippines. Edmund Placot, a freshman residing in Manila at the time of the revolt, gives a dispassionate account of it and its causes in an article published in the French literary magazine Revue des Deux Mondes in 1877. His account complemented the Veras account by confirming that the event happened due to the Governor General Rafael Izquierdo y Gutierrez exacting of personal taxes from the soldiers and workers, as well as his imposition of the forced labor on them, which results to the discontentment of the workers and soldiers in Cavite Fort. On January 20, 1872, the day of the mutiny, the workers received their salaries and were surprised and angered at the same time due to the deduction of tributes and payments in lieu of forced labor from their salaries. They staged the mutiny right away, but it was crushed as soon as it started because of a lack of coordination between the mutineers. In the Spaniards' accounts, 1872 was premeditated, a part of a big conspiracy among educated leaders, mestizos, lawyers, and residents of Manila and Cavite. The account detailed that on January 20, 1872, the district of Sampaloc celebrated the feast of the Virgin Loreto. Came with it some fireworks display. The Caviteños allegedly mistook this as the signal to commence with the attack. However, according to the Filipino accounts, the friars used the incident as a part of a larger conspiracy to cement their dominance, which had started to show cracks because of the discontent of the Filipinos. They showcased the mutiny as part of a greater conspiracy in Philippines by Filipinos to overthrow the Spanish government. Unraveling the truth. Considering the four accounts of the 1872 mutiny, there were some basic facts that remained to be unvarying. First, there was dissatisfaction among the workers of the arsenal as well as the members of the native army after their privileges were drawn back by General Izquierdo. Second, General Izquierdo introduced rigid and strict policies that made the Filipinos move and turn away from Spanish government out of a disgust. Third, the central government failed to conduct an investigation on what truly transpired, but relied on reports of Izquierdo and the friars and the opinion of the public. Fourth, the happy days of the friars were already numbered in 1872 when the central government in Spain decided to deprive them of the power to intervene in the government affairs as well as in the direction and management of schools, prompting them to commit frantic moves to extend their stay and maintain their power in the Philippines. So I hope you understand my report, which is my topic is differing accounts of the events of 1872. And once again, I am Rieko Aldias, and thank you for watching.